Analysis of the Falling Leaves by Margaret Postgate Cole for the AQA GCSE Literature exam. The Falling Leaves, November 1915. Today, as I rode by, I saw the brown leaves dropping from their tree in a still afternoon, when no wind whirled them whistling to the sky, but thickly, silently they fell, like snowflakes wiping out the noon, and wandered slowly thence for thinking of a gallant multitude which now all withering lay, slain by no wind of age or pestilence, but in their beauty strewed like snowflakes falling on the Flemish clay. Okay, as we have done with the other poems, we are using flirts, form, language, imagery, rhythm, rhyme, tone and subject, but starting with the subject. This poem is a reflection, it's contemplating the loss of life, the huge loss of life in World War I, and it is told, interestingly, from a female perspective. And it was written, as you can see by the date, November 1915, it was written during the war, at the start, really, in the first year of the First World War. Now, form, the poem is short enough to put in its entirety there, and as you can see, it is tightly structured as a poem. There are 12 lines of alternating lengths, and if you notice, it is written in one single sentence. So, the form hereby, the regular structure of alternating lines offers contrast. This is a poem that offers a lot of contrasts, and the longer and the shorter lines contrast. And, you know, I was thinking about this, perhaps the longer lines represent the lives of those who have left behind, and they are living their lives, not necessarily living their lives normally, but they are not having their lives cut short by the conflict. Whereas the shorter lines represent the loss of life, those that are losing their lives have been cut short or indeed disrupted by the conflict. Now, with it being written in one sentence, the poet Postgate Cole shows how this is one single thought. It is a reflection on the lives that have been lost. Beginning the poem with the word today, it shows how the poem is focused. This is a poem focused solely in the present, and at the time it was written, lives were being lost, and they were currently being lost, and they were continuing to be lost. It's a poem of two halves, really. The first one is a more gentle reflection on the falling leaves, and the second half there is a bit more anger from the poet, as it specifically references the dying soldiers. Now, the language, there we see the use of the first person. We also have a frequent use of present participle verbs, and what that means is in words. Okay, so verbs are actions, and we have their present participle: dropping, whistling, wiping, withering, falling. Now, the first person pronoun shows that this is a personal reflection. Not that always means a personal reflection, but I think that this is a personal reflection of the poet herself. I think this is emphasised by the fact that it follows the date, November 1915, and also starts with the word today. This is a poem that, when it was written, was reflecting on the here and now, the real events, the actuality of the war. Also, the use of the present participles, that's dropping, whistling, withering, falling. It emphasises that this is happening. The lives, at the time the poem was written, lives were being lost, and they were continuing to be lost, and the poet therefore is commenting on this. Now, the imagery, we have that central metaphor of the falling leaves, and we have a contrast with with that simile, like snowflakes wiping out the noon. The image is contrasted with that of destruction, a gentle image contrasted with destruction. And then we have a biblical reference. These aren't the only images in the poem, as I've said in my previous videos. I'm not just giving you the be-all and the end-all, but I'm just pointing out various, just some of the images, some of the use of language, some of the examples of tone, etc., for you to think about as you revise the poem. This central metaphor is of the autumnal leaves falling from the trees. It symbolises the soldiers dying. Autumn as a season represents a natural progression. We talk about autumn sometimes in melancholy tones. We talk about reaching the autumn years of our lives. There is a song from the War of the Worlds musical called Forever Autumn, which is quite melancholic, sad. It's about the losing love. It's about passing. But not always. Keats wrote a beautiful poem called To Autumn, where he celebrates the season. But here it's being used for its representation of progression, time progressing, and being a natural progression, and also the fact that the autumn brings on winter, which of course is a time of death, where life leaves the planet. The trees, the leaves, they don't die, but their leaves die and fall to the ground. The birds fly south. The animals, the mammals and so forth, hibernate. So it is a time where a bleak and barren of life. However, it's still a natural progression, and the leaves are shedding the trees are shedding their leaves for winter, but this is contrasted with an image of a still afternoon, which isn't natural. In autumn, we have the winds that shake the leaves off the trees so that they fall naturally, but here there is this stillness, indicating how the soldiers that are dying in war are dying from unnatural causes. The simile of the snowflakes, like snowflakes wiping out the noon, and the simile of the snowflakes is repeated, so that's why it's an important image in this poem. Like snowflakes in line 6 and like snowflakes in line 12, so it ends both halves of the poem. Now snowflakes is gentle, it's relaxing, tranquil, and it's a peaceful image. However, it turns into destruction. It's blocking out the sun. It's wiping out the noon. Again, being unnatural, showing the discord, the lack of harmony in life because of the war. The repetition of the snowflake image shows how the soldiers are melting away into nothing after they have died. Now, pestilence, it's an archaic word. It means disease, and here it references the Bible. Arguably, it references the Bible. I mean, pestilence is still a word that is used and not necessarily referencing the Bible, but we could say that. So, it would be fair enough to write it in your exam if necessary. But what pestilence means is that it's a disease, illness. It's a metaphor showing how the leaves, so the wind of age or pestilence, that is the metaphor. Showing that the leaves should fall by a natural wind, but this isn't happening. They're not falling by the wind, and neither are the soldiers falling by the natural winds of age or the natural winds of disease. Okay, so they're not living to old age, and they're not dying off through terminal illness, but they're being killed early. Again, emphasizing that there is no logical reason for their deaths. Rhythm and rhyme. There is a regular and a uniform meter, and there's a regular rhyme scheme. Okay, that rhyme scheme, ABC, ABC, that's the first half. So by, tree, noon, sky, silently, tree, lee, tree, noon, sky, lee, noon. Okay, so we have that ABC, ABC, and then it's DEF, DEF. So we have thence, chewed, lay, ence, strewed, clay. Okay, they're the rhyming sounds, not the whole words. They're the rhyming sounds. Also, the uniform meter. Can you see that the lines are 6 syllables and 12? No, they're not. They're 6 and 10 syllables long. It's 12 lines, and we have that alternating 6 and 10 syllables. Now, again, This just shows the contrasts, and we talked about it in form, the longer lines and the shorter lines, but the regularity of the meter, the regularity of the rhythm, remember meter describes the rhythm, and the regularity of the rhyme scheme is evidence of this contrast. It is a tightly controlled structure, and this contrasts with a lack of structure, a lack of order, a lack of logical thought in war. The war itself represents a disorder, represents a lack of structure to the global community, and the lives of men are sacrificed as a result of this. The regular pattern, I think, offers an ironic contrast to the chaos of war. The fact that it is so neat in its as a poem, in its meter, in its rhyme, and it is quite a succinct poem as well. And I think that this is an ironic contrast to that chaos of war. Now the tone, we have those quotes there: still afternoon, gallant multitude, their beauty strewed. I think it's mournful in tone, almost elegiac, okay, like an elegy. And the tone is respectful towards the soldiers, the gallant multitude, their beauty. But it's angry about war, I think. So the poem is a mournful reflection on the loss, and therefore it's gentle in its tone, it's soft in its tone, it's respectful in its tone. The soldiers are represented in terms of respect. The poet, I think, is honouring their sacrifice. But I don't think that she is honouring the cause that they are fighting. The fact that their beauty is strewed, I mean, strewed just means thrown away, thrown about, shows that it shows this contrast between respect and anger, because it suggests that their lives were not considered important. They were not considered important, and have been, as a result of the war, carelessly wasted.